Hello, welcome to the 12 Months to Marathon podcast with me, John Hill, the running podcast for the over 35s with marathon dreams, episode 79, simplifying running speak. So what's going on with me at the moment? Well, as you may know, if you've listened to this podcast before, I am still marathon training for my 16th marathon in April in Boston here in the UK in Lincolnshire. It's going well, having to move things around a little bit and listen to my body, particularly recovery and things like that. So that's something that I've had to look at quite a bit. Particularly this week when the load gets a bit heavier. Okay, so when you're following a proper marathon training plan or a plan that's designed to get you a certain goal, there are trade-offs that come with that. And one of those things that come with it is the fact that you will have to do quite a bit of volume in terms of your miles, especially if you're trying to do something that's stretching you out a little bit. So we're in that phase at the moment where I've had to move things around a little bit. But as long as I'm hitting my overall weekly mileage, I'm happy. And there's a lesson there. Please feel free to take that. And I'll probably do a podcast on that later. What I want to do today is I get a lot of, obviously, questions. People ask questions on Instagram. Don't forget to follow me at 12 Months to Marathon. And one of the classics is about running terminology or running speak. I don't understand what the different types of runs mean, and I always find that fascinating. So I would have talked about this before on previous podcasts, but because it keeps getting asked, I want to do it again. So I perhaps talked about it on Speedwork podcast, and I've done a lot of work with my coaching community on Speedwork, because that's one of the things where we get far too caught up in words and terminology. So I'm going to go in a little bit hard here. So strap yourselves in. I'm only going to give you things as I see them. Okay. But first, what I want to do with you is be a little bit vulnerable as the 2026 speak goes. And I'll tell you a story about cadence, interestingly, because last year, where are we? 25, early last year in 2025, a coaching client of mine said to me, how important is cadence? And I didn't know what cadence was at the time. Now, he didn't know what cadence was. He's a running coach. Actually, I did know what cadence was, but I didn't call it cadence. Okay, so when I first learned about running cadence specifically, and there's a podcast that I did on this, I looked at it as a physical thing. So it was my running form. So when I first read Eat and Run by Scott Jurek, which I highly recommend you read, he talked about a particular style of running in terms of running form, and I tried that and it worked for me, and it helped me when I ran faster, which naturally increased my cadence when I began to look at it. But I didn't see it as cadence. I didn't even run my first sub-3 marathon knowing what cadence was, but I knew how I felt when I ran, and that was the biggest lesson for me here, because I thought, isn't that interesting how there's a terminology. I didn't know what that word meant in terms of the word and the concept, but I knew what it meant in the physical act of running. And there's a big lesson here, And like I said, I'm going to go in. Firstly, we have to be very, very careful about over-intellectualizing things. There are layers to that, which we won't go into in a running podcast. But one of the biggest problems with, I would argue, society is when we intellectualize basic, straightforward concepts, okay? And we try and make them too complicated so normal people can't understand them. And it's a way of alienating people. Does that make sense? Now, one of the biggest problems with running is gatekeeping. So this fits into that category of gatekeeping of, if you don't understand what that is, then you're not a real runner. Or if you don't know what a tempo run is, you're not a real runner, which is absolute nonsense. Because when I started looking into this, I did my first sub-3 marathon based on a very simple plan, which taught me about the different types of runs I needed to do, which was fast, comfortably hard, and easy. I'm going to bracket it at those three things. That's as pretty much as complicated as it got, and I accepted that, followed it, and did a sub-3 marathon at the age of 45, which I've been pursuing for quite a few years. Okay, and I use that as an example because that was my North Star. That was my white whale, as I call it, yeah? So that was almost like my talisman piece. So for me, that was quite a challenging thing to do, particularly as I am over 45. So what I want to say is, if you're looking for intellectual, technical advice on running, then you're potentially either one of two things. You're either overcomplicating it, or you've been negatively baffled with loads of information, or you're an elite. Okay. Now, if you're an elite and you're working with sports scientists and the whole thing, then you probably won't be listening to this podcast. But if you're over 35 and you want to run your first marathon or PB a subsequent one, then it's important that we break down any barriers that we have. And the way we break down those barriers is we get rid of the intellectualizing of basic concepts to confuse you or to make, this is going to sound awful, and there's no judgment here. I just need to get it out so you understand what I'm saying. And people trying to make other people feel bad because they think they're cleverer than them. Okay. Now, I'm from a working class background, right? I am a relatively intelligent person. Yeah. I chose a different path. I didn't pass academia. I chose a different path, which is a story for a different day. And I'm going to be interviewed in a few weeks on a YouTube channel, and I'll let you know about that, and we go into that a little bit more on that because the guy's interviewing me. Anyway, so what we've got to be careful of is that we don't allow other people to make us feel bad because we don't understand things. The truth is, people have been running for years. People have been running in basic equipment, basic shoes, basic clothes, no watches and things like that before anybody understood all of this stuff. And the problem is, we are often talking to normal people in athlete speak or that sports science speak, which is completely unnecessary. And I'm from a fitness background. Where I come from, the majority of people that walk into a gym or want help from, say, a personal trainer, which is what I used to be, are normal people who want to look and feel better. Now, if part of that looking and feel better means working on sort of biomechanics or working on their functional fitness, all these terms that we use, fantastic. But most people just want to look and feel better. And as the old saying goes, don't use £10 words when you can use 50 pence words, or $10 words when you can use 50-cent words. Okay? Because your job is to help people to understand what they need to do. Your job as a runner, particularly if you're marathon training at the moment, which I'm assuming a lot of people listening to this will be, is to understand and apply, not get baffled, ask tons of questions, and feel bad about yourself because you don't understand this gatekeeping terminology that holds a lot of people back. Yeah. So a classic would be, and there's no judgment here. I keep saying that because I don't want anybody to feel, I'm not attacking people personally here. I'm attacking concepts. Okay. Like floating reps or, all these words that we use when actually, if you're over 35 and you're looking to run your first marathon, it's, have you got an effective plan that you can follow? Does it fit around your lifestyle? Do you understand the importance of training and rest and recovery? Yeah. And are you doing a plan that's going to prepare you to run a marathon? Yeah. Not to be more intelligent and not to understand different terminology, but run a marathon. Yeah. And that's what you have to understand. So my job here, coaching, Instagram, all of it, is to simplify everything and say, right, here's how you do. Had a conversation today with somebody, and I always say what I say to them. My job is to go and do, tweak, ask questions, do again. Yeah, to make it simple for you to go and apply. Or in a marathon training situation, my job is to make it simple for you to go and run and do your plan. Yeah, not to make it sound technical so you don't understand it, because the default for a lot of human beings when we don't understand something is we do nothing. Our default setting is nothing, and we don't want you doing nothing. We want you doing. Yeah. Safely, of course, under consideration and all that, but you don't need to have a deep intellectual understanding of things to be able to go and do. Okay. So this podcast isn't actually about simplifying language. It's about saying, well, forget the language in the first place. Think about it in terms of feeling. That was a lactate threshold session. Did you run faster? Yes. Okay. For most people, particularly over 35, looking to keep it simple, looking for the first marathon, or looking to run their second marathon, should I say, better example, I'm looking to personal best a second marathon. Okay, well, you need to learn how to run faster. Calling it something isn't going to get you to run faster. Running faster is going to get you running faster, and understanding what that feels like. Because when you try and up your pace, you need to be 100% comfortable with yourself. And you need to look, right, I know I can hold this pace for the distance that I'm running at, which is why, as I always say, which catches a lot of people out, particularly bravado and all that, is where there's a difference between running fast, running far, and running fast for far. Okay, totally different thing. Smashing a PB on a 5K is not running a marathon. And you might say, well, that's obvious. You'd be surprised how many people think that a good 10K time will translate to a marathon. It won't, because you've got to hold that pace for a longer period of time and work through different systems. Okay. Now, again, not to overcomplicate that, but that's just how it is. So I've done most of my stuff on feel. I've only started to get a little bit more technical recently, just to have a better understanding of things to probably help me articulate things better. But I'll still coach in a simple way. I'll still do this podcast in a simple way. So actually, I thought the cadence example was a funny, because I thought somebody could go to town on me and go, do you call yourself a running coach and you don't understand what cadence is? Yes, but I've run 15 marathons after the age of 35 and I help people over 35 run marathons. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. What matters is application. What matters for you at the moment, if you are in a training cycle or you're thinking about entering one, is application, is doing. Yes, because that's how you're going to learn. Because you'll do something, you'll identify how it felt, and then you'll go again and see how it felt again. Classic with speed work, right? Because speed work's where a lot of these challenges come from. With language, was that a tempo run? Doesn't matter. Was it comfortably hard? I don't know. Could you hold a conversation? Yes. Is that hard then? Probably not. Do you see what I mean? It's about what you're doing in the run. It's not what you call the run. It's what you're doing in the run that matters. And a lot of this, I think, comes from the other problem, which I've also done a podcast from, is the public stuff, social media. Strava, whatever apps that you use, because you feel like you've got to call your run something. You feel like you've got to say something. You've got to describe it. The worst type of thing, in my opinion, is going, that was terrible, awful day, awful day. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you keep talking to yourself like that, you can't expect to get positive results if you keep talking to yourself and posting things negatively. Because when I do that, it's a cry for help. It's a cry for reassurance, and that's not going to help you. What's going to help you is understanding how you feel yourself and dealing with it yourself. And a coach, someone like myself, will deal with the performance aspects of things, not the personal aspects of things. I get this question all the time. Do you look at people's runs? No, I wasn't there. So how can I look at someone's run and go, someone says, I want to do a fast 5K, and they send me their 5K and it's not as fast as I want. You should have done that faster. Excuse me. That's not very good advice. What is good advice is, well, okay, let's deconstruct it. How did it feel? At what point did you feel this? What was this sensation? How did you? Because that's what running is. Distance running is about control and understanding your body and understanding how you feel. It's not about what you call it. You won't care how many tempo runs you did when you're at mile 22 of a marathon. What you will care is, have you got the chops, physically and mentally, to finish that job? That's all that matters. Okay, so if you are in that place where you're getting confused about terminology and people are trying to baffle you and make you feel bad or gatekeep, none of that's important. What's important is, if you're training for a marathon, particularly in the spring, do I have a plan? Am I following that plan to the best of my ability? And do I understand my plan? Because if you understand your plan, you will understand how to move things around, how to adapt it, and how to make it suit your lifestyle. And particularly if you're over 35, which a lot of people who follow and listen to me are, it's not as simple as I do this on a Monday, I do this on a Tuesday, I do this on a Wednesday. You can't necessarily do that. You've got to move things around to fit around your lifestyle and circumstances. Okay, so to finish up on this one, yes, it's helpful, and yes, it's useful sometimes to understand what is meant by certain words. But you don't become a better runner, and you don't run a marathon with intelligence. You run it with application and understanding. And that's for everybody. And that's why running is such a fantastic sport. Because when we start gatekeeping, we have a problem. And I think a lot of the times, the over-intellectualising and the stuff that's academic for academic's sake is causing us problems, because we're talking to people who just want to run the first marathon and do it comfortably, like they need to be hiring a sports scientist, and they probably don't. Okay, so give yourself a bit of a break if that was you. If you need any help, as always, or you want to have a chat, of course, just reach out to me on Instagram at 12 Months to Marathon, and we can talk about some support or coaching or whatever you want to do. And that's that, and we can see where we go with that. If not, don't forget, go to at 12 Months to Marathon on Instagram. Go to the link in my bio, join my free running community over there. And again, you can share experiences and stuff like that with runners just like you. Totally free to join. Just go to the link in my bio at Instagram. If this is the first time you've listened to this podcast, please feel free to subscribe, Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. I appreciate it. And if you're a long time listener, A, remember to share it, really helpful. And B, please drop me a review. That's really useful, or a comment, because that helps as well. So hopefully that's useful. I hope it helps you very much. And if you are training at the moment, make sure you're on point, you have a plan, you're following your plan, and you understand your plan, and that's the most important thing. Thank you very much as always for listening, and I'll speak to you all very soon indeed.